Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the midfield.
Welcome to what is a sad day in college football, the last episode of the regular season for the Ian Fritts show. And I know, just got to address it. I know some of you might be wondering, what are we going to do? What are we going to do without the best college football show in the entire world during the off season? What are we going to do, Ian? And well, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to do anything, because the Ian Fritts show has got it covered. We're going to be doing the show throughout the entire off season. We'll still be loading them up there on the YouTube. We're going to start trying to do them on Spotify as well. So yeah, we're going places here at the Ian Fritts show. So don't be sad about that. Everybody knows what week it is. It's Thanksgiving week. So be thankful this week. A lot to be thankful for. One of those things is college football. And one of those things is rivalry weekend. Try to say that 15 times fast. You won't be able to. It's very difficult. Tried it earlier today to see if I could fit it in the show. I couldn't, so I nixed it. I couldn't do it. And sometimes you got to make those decisions when you're running your own show. You got to say, hey, I can't say that because I struggle with saying those words. I got to get it out the show. So that's what I did. In my mind right here, this weekend, this might be the most bittersweet weekend of the year. I'm talking about the entire year. January 1, December 31st. Why is it the most bittersweet weekend of the year? Well, why is it bitter? Everybody knows why. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the last regular season weekend of college football. What does that mean? Well, it means in just a short time, in about a month's time, we will be without college football for 8 months out of the year. And that is no good. That is no good. We will all be sad. We will all cry a little bit. I know I will. And if you don't think you're going to cry, let it out. Let out the tears. It's okay to cry about not having college football for 8 months at a time. It's sad. It's a real tragedy in this country that we don't get it all year round. Except we do. Just not games. So we can cry about the games, but the coverage will still be here. Okay, we'll have some fun things to do. So it's bitter because it's winding down. I've been warning you guys. I've been saying, hey, it's going to be here before we want it to, before we can even think, before we can even blink. End of the season is here, and we're here, sadly, unfortunately. However, college football has blessed us with one last week in the regular season that is just filled with awesomeness. It's rivalry weekend, which means that we'll get a lot of games that only happened this week out of the year, obviously. A lot of rivalry games. You've got Florida State, Florida. You've got Auburn, Alabama. You've got the Iron Bowl. You've got, which is Auburn, Alabama, by the way, if you didn't know. You've got the Civil War, not the one from way back when in America, not over slavery. You've got, that one would be Oregon State and Oregon. I'm not entirely sure why they call that one the Civil War. It has, geographically, it's nowhere near where the Civil War took place, so not entirely sure the history naming of that game specifically, but it's a fun one. So that one's going to be this weekend as well. We've got Stanford, Notre Dame elite uniform matchup as well. Let's see what else we got here. We've got Ohio State, Michigan, obviously the game. And props to them for just securing that name for whatever these rivalries are called. Just secure the game. That's big. That's big for them. That's big for all of college football that, when someone says, are you going to watch the game? Well, everybody knows what you're talking about. You're talking about Ohio State, Michigan. And, props to those two schools for, hey, communicating. Hey, why don't we just get this ball rolling way back whenever this rivalry started? Let's secure this name. Let's secure the game so people know, hey, they're talking about us. Props to them. And then after rivalry weekend, we're going to have a lot of coaching jobs open up. Coaches will be fired. Coaches will retire. Coaches will resign. Coaches will say, hey, you know what? I'm stepping down. I'm gonna let somebody else take over. It's not my time anymore. Let's see what somebody else can do with all these players, okay? You're going to have a lot of coaching jobs open up. Some already have, some will that we don't know about yet, but they will. And then you're going to have the transfer portal open back up. And I just think of the game Portal 2 on the Xbox, where you shoot a wall and it shoots a portal, and you shoot another wall and there's a portal there, and you just jump through it and boom, you're out this wall. That's what I think of when every time I hear the transfer portal. It has nothing to do with college football, I know, but that's my thought when I hear transfer portal. I think of that little video game. Fun game, by the way. You guys should check it out if you haven't. That's a fun game. And the transfer portal is also a fun game. It's just a carousel. I'm gonna hop on this carousel. Ooh, I've been at Florida State for 3.5 years. Where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna go? I'm going to Georgia State because I didn't play any football. But if you're a guy that has some film on him, like a little rumor out there right now is Evan Stewart, A&M wide receiver, is going to hop in that little transfer portal. He's going to hop in that portal over there through that wall, and boom, he's going to pop out of this wall in the Alabama Crimson Tide uniform. Now, if that happens, props to Alabama for getting a stud wide receiver like that. It's going to be sad for the rest of college football world, but transfer portal, I like it. It's fun. Adds an element to the game that I think it just makes it more fun, more interesting. Everybody can get whoever they want. It's a fun time. So after this weekend, after Rivalry weekend, we're going to have all of that happening. The offseason doesn't rest in college football. Now the games stop. Going to Saturday tailgating stops, talking about who's going to win this weekend, upsets this weekend, all of that stops. But we still talk about coaches. What are they going to do this year? Who's going to perform? What this player's at a new school? What does that look like? If he doesn't win this year, is he going to get fired next year? What happens? Who knows? There's a lot to talk about in the offseason, but it's a bittersweet weekend this weekend. But all of those rivalry games that I just mentioned, Florida State, Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, the Civil War, you've got the Apple Cup, you got all of these games for 1 week a year. All of these schools, all of these fan bases can yell, they can bash, they can insult whoever they want from the opposing team, and it's going to be the headlines in those states, in all of college football world. Those are the headlines this week. Hey, Washington State said something about the Washington guy. Oregon said something about the Oregon State guy. Alabama said something about the Auburn guy. Who knows what? Who said what? Motivation all over the place, plastered on the walls, plastered on the locker room. They really get like suites in locker rooms right now. You're getting a whole bed in there. You can lounge around. But they're putting up quotes that the other team said, that the Auburn Tigers said about the Alabama Crimson Tide, that the Alabama Crimson Tide said about the Auburn Tigers. They're putting those up in the locker room, and they're motivated to go out there and kill some dudes this week in Rivalry weekend. That is what the sport is all about. And it's sad because I think Rivalry weekend is kind of winding down. We're getting in the back end of what we have known and what we have loved from the last 25 plus years of college football. And that is because of conference realignment. I think we're going to slowly transition away from all of these rivalry games happening not only every year, but also at the end of the year. So I think in 5-6 years time, maybe we don't get Auburn, Alabama every year on the last Saturday of the year. I think maybe we're getting away from that a little bit. I don't think that's next year or anything, or the next 2 years, but I think we're almost at that point where it's going to be more of an NFL schedule type situation where there's just one big conference and everybody's just playing 12 games a year, and we're going to have this bigger playoff, which there's pros and cons. I like the bigger playoff. I don't like the conference realignment part of it. I like the rivalry weekend. But we're here and we're now, and we can celebrate rivalry weekend for what it is and what it's going to give us this weekend. And I think we're going to have some really good games. We still haven't had upset weekend. So wouldn't it just be the most glorious thing in the world to have our upset weekend and our rivalry weekend just meet? Just have a little handshake right there at the end of the year. Can we just get those to meet at the end of the year and just happen at the same time? We already know one of them's happening. We already know all these rivalries are going down. We don't know about the upsets. But looking into these games, guys, I think we might have the upsets. Okay, let's just enjoy what could be one of the last rivalry weekends as we know it. Let's enjoy it, and let's get into the first preview for this weekend. We still got the straw, still a revolutionary product. And if you guys, maybe a glass straw could be the first sponsor of the show here in a couple years' time. I don't know, but that would be cool. That would be cool. It's a part of the show. I like it. But let's get into the first preview for this weekend, and that is, I alluded to earlier, they have one of the coolest names for any game in all of college football, The Game, and that's Ohio State versus Michigan. It's up there in the big house, up there in Michigan. I'm doing a little bit of an approach to the breakdown this weekend. I'm just going straight. Who am I giving advantage to at every position on the field? And we're gonna see what I think at each of those positions, where the advantage lies for each of those teams, and I'll give you my pick at the end of it. I just kind of thought of this on at work the other day, and I thought, you know what? That's how I'll do the game. That's how I'll do the game. It's so special of a game that it deserves its own breakdown, its own type that I haven't done all year. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to start with the most important position on the field, and that's the quarterback. Okay, so Ohio State, you got Kyle McCord, quarterback in that unit, and then you got old J.J. McCarthy over there for the Michigan Wolverines. What is a shocking thing to learn, a few weeks ago, J.J. McCarthy, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, J.J. McCarthy became the Heisman favorite in the Heisman odds. I'm not sure if anybody bet on that, but if they did, they just didn't want their money, I guess, because everybody saw that he is not a Heisman-worthy quarterback. No shots at J.J. McCarthy. He's a fine quarterback. He's not the worst or anything, but he's no Heisman. He's no Heisman quarterback. And I think the past couple weeks have shown us that. So, you know what? I'll just talk about J.J. McCarthy right now. Look, the last few weeks, you can say all you want against Penn State. They didn't need to throw the football, but I think it kind of backed it up against Maryland, the way he played, the way they played the game against Maryland. I don't think Michigan has a lot of faith in J.J. McCarthy at this moment. I don't think they have faith in him to say, hey, make the throws when you can make the throw. We're putting the ball in your hand, and you're going to go make a deep ball throw. You're going to make a throw over the middle, and we're trusting you to do that, JJ. You are our guy. We're trusting you to make those throws, and we're trusting you to go win this game. I don't think they have that in JJ McCarthy right now. And, it's tough. It's tough if you're, the number 3 team in the country with an elite defense like they have, to have a quarterback that they don't think they can trust. And I think that's where Michigan is at right now, at the quarterback situation, at the quarterback position. On the other flip side, flip it over, boom. We've got Kyle McCord for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, a lot of people out there have been saying Kyle McCord is a bad quarterback. They've been saying that J.J. McCarthy could also be a Heisman candidate. The same people. If you look at their numbers, virtually identical. However, Kyle McCord, against the top 25 opponents, against top 25 defenses, against better opponents, he has a lot better numbers than the old J.J. McCarthy. Now, you could say, well, Ohio State has better weapons. And they do. They do. We'll get into those positions later. But I also think Kyle McCord has this ability about himself to, when the game is on the line, when he needs to make a throw, he does. And, the Notre Dame is the perfect example of that. Yes, he almost threw an interception on the final drive, but he also had to make the big throws when they presented themselves, and he did that to Emeka Egbuka to get down to the 1 yard line at the end of the Notre Dame game. So right now, this may shock some people. I'm giving the edge. It's albeit a smaller edge than some of the other quarterbacks out there would have an edge over J.J. McCarthy, but I'm giving the edge to Kyle McCord and the Ohio State Buckeyes at the quarterback position. Let's move right along to running back. Okay, now you may say, well, duh. Obviously, he's going to go with Michigan. They got Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. That's 2 top 5 round draft picks in the NFL draft upcoming. And you might be right. They're both going to get drafted. They're both very good running backs, very solid. However, Ohio State has this man over there named Travion Henderson, and he's finally healthy. He's finally healed up. He's been banged up all year, but these past couple weeks he looked healthy. He was running like his old self. He has this ability. And, we in the business, and we call it the burst. He has this burst. When he sees a hole, he just, boom! He goes right through that hole with a little burst. That's why we call it a burst, because it's just like a burst, like gushers. When you squeeze down on a gusher, boom, it bursts. That's what Travion Henderson is like through the hole. So when you're watching him this weekend, if a hole opens up, and you see him burst through that hole, just think of a gusher. Just think of a gusher, and we might call him the Gusher. You know what? That's his nickname, the Gusher. Travion Gusher Henderson. That's a terrible nickname. We're not calling him that. But put all that aside, I think Travion Henderson is a better running back than Blake Corum or Donovan Edwards. I very well think he's the best running back in all of college football. So, especially when he's healthy, he's got that burst, he's got great vision, he has the ability to make people miss, he has elite speed, he has elite catching ability, he can do it all, and I give the advantage to Travion Henderson and the Ohio State Buckeyes at the running back position. And I'd say this one is a more considerable margin than the quarterback position. So I like Travion Henderson. I like what he brings to the table. Give me Ohio State at the running back position. Wide receivers, I really don't need to go too far into this position group because everybody knows that Ohio State clears the Michigan wide receiver room by about 3 or 4 miles. You've got the best wide receiver in all of college football. You've got another top wide receiver in Emeka Egbuka, and then you've got 17 other dudes that were 5 stars in that wide receiver room. So I'm just going to say Ohio State has a better wide receiver room, and it's by a considerable margin. When you have the best player on the field, which Marvin Harrison will be the best player on that field, they can line them up wherever they want. They can get whatever matchup they want. Ohio State can. And I know Michigan has some dudes in that secondary, but Marvin Harrison has shown it doesn't matter who he's lined up against, he is going to get his, and he's going to get his all day long. So if I'm Ohio State, I'm giving the ball to Travion Henderson. I'm looking for Marvin Harrison Jr. wherever he is. I'm throwing it down the field. If he's quadruple covered, I'm throwing it up to him, and he's going to go make a play. And I'll give the advantage, wide receiver-wise, to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And you may be saying, Ian, whoa. That's 3, just straight off. 3 positions in a row you gave to Ohio State. I do. And we're going 4 in a row. Tight end-wise, I think they're very even. Both of these guys, they're solid. They're solid rooms all around. But I give the advantage to Cade Stover in the Ohio State tight end room. Not by much, maybe by a little hair like that. But I give the advantage barely to Ohio State in this category as well. It's not by much. I don't think this has that big of an impact on the game. So in my algorithm that I have here, it's not weighing heavily at all. So it's not going to have that big of an impact on the game. But I do give the advantage to Ohio State. And if Cade Stover happens to make a big play, then I can say that I said they had the advantage. So we covered our bases here. Offensive line. Now this one, here you go. If you wanted to come here and just hear me celebrate Michigan and how they've been so incredible all year long, you're about to hear that their offensive line is legit, and I give the advantage heavily. Now, I know you may say, Ian, but these guys aren't facing each other. Offensive lines don't go against offensive lines, and you're correct. However, but as a unit, advantage Michigan by a lot. Ohio State has a bunch of transfers in there from a year ago that transferred in there. They haven't panned out to what they thought they would be. Now, they had to replace some good talent that they had last year on the offensive line, Ohio State did, and it hasn't panned out, hasn't been what they thought those guys would be. And that unit as a whole has been very disappointing all year. They've given up, I believe, 16.5 sacks this year, which is not great for a program as high of a caliber as Ohio State. They need to fix those things on the offensive line, and they're going to go up against a very good defensive line for Michigan this weekend. So we'll see what they can do on the offensive line, if they can just bring in some more tight ends, a couple tight ends, a running back to help with the pressure that Michigan will be able to bring just with the 4-man front. So we'll see on that. But Michigan, advantage offensive line them by a mile. That group, back-to-back defending offensive line, best offensive line group in the country. And they have a very good shot of winning it again this year. So advantage Michigan by a long shot. Now, they are going up against a very, very good group up front for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we'll see how it's going to be a line of scrimmage battle for both of them. I think both defensive lines have an advantage over both offensive lines. That's how good I think these defensive lines are. So we'll segue right into that. Who has an advantage at the defensive line position group? There's a couple positions on the defensive line. Both of these units are elite. And I'm going to give, this may shock some people, I'm going to give the advantage to the Ohio State Buckeyes barely. I mean, this one is closer than what I would give them in the tight end room and the quarterback room. It's very minimal advantage, but I give the advantage to Ohio State. They have dudes all across the front that are very good against the run, very good against the pass, and I think that's the key. All four of those dudes that they started out there on the defensive line, all four of those guys have elite pass rush moves, and all four of them can get after the quarterback extremely well. So we'll see how they do that against a very good offensive line in Michigan this weekend, but just a hair of an advantage for Ohio State's defensive line in this one. Moving right along into the linebacker group, Michigan. Michigan has the advantage at linebacker. Now, it's not by much. Again, but I think these teams are very, very even. There's only a couple positions all across the field where I think Ohio State has an advantage by a little bit, or by a wider margin here than Michigan does by a wider margin here. And that's wide receiver and offensive line are the biggest gaps, talent-wise and production-wise, for both of these teams. But for linebacker, I like Michigan at this position, and they're going to have to be able to stop the run this weekend. They're going to have to be able to drop back in coverage. They're going to have to do what a linebacker is asked to do. They've done it all year. Are they going to be able to do it against a very good offense in the Ohio State Buckeyes? We'll see if they can. But I like that group more than I like the Ohio State linebackers this weekend. So we'll see what we get out of those guys. Safety, I'm going to give the edge to the Michigan Wolverines. Again, not by much at all, but I like that position group as a whole. I think they have more depth on the back end there. I think those two guys that they start out there are better in run support than the Ohio State safeties are in run support. So that's kind of where I'm giving the edge to. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, and I think it's going to come down to how those guys fill their gaps in the run game. And I trust Michigan's guys to fill the gaps better than Ohio State's safeties. But then we go out on the outskirts, on one of the hardest positions in football out there at the cornerback position. It's tough, but Ohio State, Denzel Burke, that man out there, you can put him one-on-one with anyone. And also, I think an edge, specifically in this game, I'd give them an edge pretty much anywhere they play. But in this game, I think an advantage goes to the cornerback position for the Ohio State group because they're not going up against elite wide receivers like the Michigan cornerbacks are going up against. Michigan's going up against Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka and a whole bunch of dudes over there on the wide receiving core for Ohio State. They've got their hands full out there. Michigan, or Ohio State, mind you, quarterback-wise, Michigan's wide receivers, they're good. Nothing great, nothing to write home about, quite honestly. Roman Wilson, really the only dude out there that I can see with my eyes. He's a good player, but nowhere near what Michigan has to deal with on the other side of the ball for their cornerbacks. So I think they're both great groups, both good positions, but I give the advantage slightly to Ohio State here because they're not going up against as elite guys as the Michigan Wolverines are this weekend. Okay, and then one last thing for this game. Michigan, they're playing up there in Ann Arbor at the Big House. So I've got to give, obviously, home field advantage to the Michigan Wolverines. Tough place to play, tough environment. It looks like it's going to be about 45 degrees, so nothing too terrible, but advantage there for Michigan. Okay, so let's go for the pick. Let's go to the pick on this game. I'm going to take a little sip of water here. Struggled with the straw. It's been a few weeks since I've had to use one of these, so I'm struggling with the ability to sip out of it as of lately. Okay, so what's the line for this game right now? The line is Michigan -3, so basically home game. You can just pick whoever, or neutral field game, it'll be even. Nobody's favored in a neutral field game is basically what that means. What we have here at the Ian Fritts Show, our algorithm shows us Michigan is favored by a 0.5 point. So it's basically a pick 'em with that home field advantage baked in. So I'm going to pick Ohio State to cover this football game. And I'm going to, you know what? I have written down over here, I have in my notes that I think Michigan is going to win. But I think Ohio State's going to win this football game. So we'll take Ohio State to cover and win. So that's the pick for the Ohio State-Michigan. That's the pick for the game one of the best rivalries in all of college football, top 3 easily. So we like Ohio State to win and Ohio State to cover. Now, you could be saying, Ian, what is the next game you're going to talk about? You're going to talk about the Civil War, even though it has no geographical ties to the actual Civil War. Are you going to talk about the Iron Bowl? Are you going to talk about the Apple Cup? What are you going to talk about? Which game are you going with this weekend? Which one are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about OU-TCU, the historic rivalry that game presents? That was a joke, by the way, if you didn't get that. No, I'm not talking about any of those games. I'm talking about what I think is going to be the second most intriguing game of the weekend. Little drum roll. If you have the little drum set, do your drum roll. Brrr, boom. We're going to Florida State at Florida. That is what I think is going to be the second most interesting game of the weekend. And you may be seeing, Ian, why do you think that's going to be the second most interesting game? I know nothing about these teams. I know nothing about this game. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. So let me take a little sip. Why is this going to be the second most interesting game this weekend? Well, if you haven't heard, both of these teams will be starting their backup quarterbacks. And if you know anything about the quarterback position and about how important that is, you don't want to be starting your backup quarterback unless they have proven themselves to be better than their starter, which neither of these guys have. Their starters have been solid all year for both of these teams. Graham Mertz for the Florida Gators, and obviously Jordan Travis having a great year over there at Florida State. Unfortunately, snapped his leg in half last weekend, so he cannot go. Shocker. So both of these teams starting their backups. Both of these guys haven't got a lot of playing time, so we'll just jump right in. How are these backup quarterbacks going to play? Who are these guys? What do they look like? What's their experience? Where did they come from? What is it going to look like from them? What's their play style? What do they do with the football this weekend? How does Florida State respond? How does Florida respond? What are we going to do with this weekend? Okay, so the backup quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles is a guy named Tate Rodemaker. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce. I've heard it several ways how do you pronounce his name. I like Rodemaker, whatever it is. Just know that I'm talking about Florida State's quarterback when I say Rodemaker. It's his 4th year at Florida State. He was there. He's been there since 2020 was his graduating class in high school. He was a 3-star guy, 88th ranked quarterback in his class. If you know anything about that, 88th ranked is not very good. So he was most likely a walk-on at his position there at Florida State. And I think he's worked his way up to a scholarship guy. But he now has the chance to be the hero for the Florida State Seminoles. He has the ability to say, hey, it is on me this weekend. It is on me this weekend. It is on me in conference championship week next week against the Louisville Cardinals to get us to the college football playoffs since the first year of the playoff format. It's on me now. It was Jordan Travis, but now it's me. All the fans, all the media, everyone in the world, college football world, everyone in the college football world is looking at me right now. They're looking at Tate Rodemaker, 3-star quarterback, 88th ranked guy out of his 2020 class. They're looking at him right now to say, hey, you gotta go get us to the college football playoffs. You don't have to play out of your mind. I don't think Florida State's going to ask him to be Jordan Travis. That's not his game. He's not a runner like Jordan Travis is. He's more of a pocket-style quarterback, just more of a traditional pocket passer, if you will. So they're not going to ask him to be Jordan Travis. They don't need to ask him to be Jordan Travis because Florida State has dudes all over the field. They have incredible playmakers all over the field. Everyone knows Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, great running back, great running game. They have dudes all over the field. They don't need Tate Rodemaker to be Jordan Travis. They don't need him to make all the plays that Jordan Travis can. They don't need that. What they need is for him to be a game manager. They just need him to not make crucial mistakes in the swamp this weekend. Did I mention it was in the swamp? Did I mention the Gator fans will be doing their clap? They'll be doing that this weekend. Can Tate Rodemaker tame that? Can you say, hey, I don't care that you're doing your stupid Gator clap. I don't care that you're doing that. I don't care about that. What I care about is handing the ball to my running back. What I care about is hitting Keon Coleman on his go ball. I'm just going to throw it up to my guys. I'm going to hand it off to my guys. And we're going to get out of here with a win. We're going to go in conference championship week undefeated. And we're going to make it to the college football playoffs. That's what Florida State and Mike Norvell are going to ask Tate Rodemaker to do this weekend. They're not going to ask him to be Jordan Travis and make all the throws, make all the plays with his legs, because he can't do that. He's not that guy. And if he is, he'll show us this weekend. But they're not asking him to do that. And if they are, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. That's coaching malpractice if they ask him to do that. They're going to ask him to just play within the system, play within himself, don't make crucial mistakes. If the throw's not there, throw it away. It's better incompletion into the stands than it is an interception in the red zone. Throw it away, we'll take our field goal. That's what Tate Rodemaker needs to be thinking this weekend, and that's what I believe the Florida State coaches are telling him this weekend. They're saying, hey, just be yourself out there. We don't need you to be hero. We don't need you to be the hero guy. For you to be a hero, you just need to win these last 2 games. Then you go down in Florida State lore. Hey, remember when Jordan Travis got injured and Tate Rodemaker took us to the college football playoff? He took us to the national championship and we won. It's not going to be because he played out of his mind. It's going to be because he was just a quarterback. He was just a quarterback. He was just the guy. And we'll see if he can do it. Now, flip that over. Who's the guy over there for the Florida Gators? What's his name? What's his story? Well, his name is Max Brown. He is a second-year guy, so he is a redshirt freshman. He's a second-year guy out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a little school up there called Lincoln Christian. His name is Max Brown. He was also, coincidentally, a 3-star quarterback in his graduating class of 2022. And they were ranked very similar, Max Brown and Tate Rodemaker. Max Brown, 87th ranked quarterback in his class. So both of these guys were not highly recruited, were not highly touted, nationally coveted players out of high school, which is just something interesting that I found in the research for the show and the prep for the show. One thing about Max Brown, he's a mobile guy. He can move around. He can make plays with his legs. Unlike Tate Rodemaker. Now Tate, he can run around a little bit. Nothing like Max Brown. Max Brown he's a very mobile quarterback. Unlike Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz, not a very mobile guy. Max Brown, mobile guy. And I think if I'm the Florida Gators, or what I think is going to be interesting if I'm the Florida Gators, how much quarterback run game are we going to implement in this game? Are we have a guy that can run around a little bit, and I think that is a way to get a young quarterback like Max Brown, just get him going in the game a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, ease him into the game, get him into the flow of things. This is a big-time game. This is no joke of a football game for either of these teams this weekend. So I think they're going to implement a lot of quarterback run with Max Brown this weekend. They did a little bit of it last week when he had to come into the game against Missouri, and it was successful. So I would assume they're going to try a lot of that this weekend against the Florida State Seminoles, and I think that's going to be their key to success. Now, one thing about a young guy like that, redshirt freshman, he's going to make some mistakes. And that's what freshmen do. They make mistakes. Now, can he limit those mistakes? And thank goodness for his sake that this game is at home, because if he was on the road over there at Doak Walker Stadium in Florida, if he was on the road, this would be a blowout. I would just call it right now. I would just say, hey, this guy's got no chance on the road. But at home, with the fans behind him, he's got a chance this weekend. He doesn't have to deal with all the crowd noise. He doesn't have to deal with all of that. So can he limit those mistakes to maybe just throwing the ball away, taking a couple sacks instead of turning the ball over? Can he hold on to the ball? Can he limit interceptions? Can he just throw one, maybe? Can he throw one instead of 5? And if he can do that, I think Florida has a very good chance of staying in this game. Now, back to these guys as a whole, back to these offenses, these defenses as a whole. Both of these guys were not national names. I just mentioned a couple seconds ago. They weren't national names. They're not used to having this national spotlight on them throughout their entire careers. They weren't dudes that were like the Bryce Young out of high school, the Caleb Williams out of high school. They weren't those guys. They were nice quarterbacks, and that's why they're at Division I elite, very good programs that Florida State and Florida are. So we'll see how they deal with the spotlight, what that looks like for each of these guys. How do they deal with being in the spotlight and having the entire country looking at these guys with all these eyeballs on them? So we'll see how both of these guys deal with that and what that looks like for them moving forward in this game. So we'll see how they handle that and what that looks like. That's going to be something I'm intrigued by. Max Brown, young guy. Tate Rodemaker, older guy, but neither of them have very much experience starting. Neither of them have experience starting in a big-time game like this. So that's going to be extremely intriguing. Now, what is the pick for the game? Florida State is favored by 6.5 on the road. So neutral site, give them 10 points. Guys, I may just be jinxing upset weekend this weekend with these two picks, saying Ohio State's going to beat Michigan and saying Florida is going to beat the Florida State Seminoles. I may just jinx upset weekend and we don't get it. However, I think we're going to get it this weekend, and I think these are two games that we're going to get it in. Ohio State beats Michigan, Florida Gators beat the Florida State Seminoles, and those are the two picks that I'm giving out in the show today. The College Football Playoff Committee has not released their rankings as of now, so I don't have the top 25 to do my picks off of. So I'll just throw that out on Twitter before all of the games proceed, most likely tonight or tomorrow sometime. So look forward to that. If you're not on the Twitter, get on there and follow so you can see the picks, and you can pick with me. You can say you disagree, whatever you want. Interact with me on Twitter over there. It's a fun time. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate just being with me through the entire season, really. And we're going to stick through the off season. Thank you guys for watching this one. I love you, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State.